So here is the instructions, 2.4. Now remember, I want to point this out again. Your emotional storytelling assignment, your discussion, that is 5% of your overall grade. This planning your presentation assignment, 20%. That is the same weight as your final project. So clearly, I want your attention and I want your focus to be on this week. The more you can come up with now in terms of content, there's some advantages here. I'm going to be able to give you better feedback that's going to help you next week when you go to do your first draft. If I know what your ideas are, they don't have to be perfect. Don't stress out about not knowing every detail of your presentation, but I want to see what your ideas are right now based on what you know and based on what you're learning this month so far in the readings and in the lectures. What are your ideas right now? Keep it in mind the subject of your presentation. The subject of your presentation is you providing a 3 to 4 minute pitch to a potential employer, investor, or collaborator about your skills. Not your company, not your product, not your talent. It's about you. Okay, so there's some differences there. It's about your skills. It's about your motivation. It's about how you are someone that they want to hire, work with, or invest in. Okay. So what do you need to do? Well, this assignment is kind of up to you in terms of format. I don't have any format requirements. A document is all I'm looking for. It could be pages, it could be Word, it could be a PDF file, it could be a mind map. Some people will do mind maps. I'm not a huge fan of mind maps because I think they lead to you kind of skimping on the detail. But if you are one of those people that likes to mind map, you certainly can do that. Now remember what we talked about on Monday. Before you get to the creation of the document, you want to go through that brainstorming process where you're thinking about all these questions that are here. And one of the best ways I said to go about that is writing them down first. So you don't have to give me your handwritten notes. And in fact, listen to me, hear me. Please don't send me your handwritten notes. Too many problems with handwriting, blurry photos, things like that. I want you to produce a document at the end that clearly kind of gives me your best ideas, what you're thinking about right now. So first off, you're going to think about your target audience. You get to pick who you're pitching to. It's totally up to you. I want the target audience, though, to be specific. Okay, so here's some examples of what you should not do. So these are bad examples. My audience is the entertainment industry. My audience is fellow musicians. My audience is game developers or people who are creative. I don't want a broad category. Okay, I want specifics here. My audience is Capitol Records. My audience is Bethesda Games. My audience is Mark Cuban, investor. Right? You know, my audience is Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank. My audience is a artist that I want to work with, a specific artist or producer, or a filmmaker, something like that. So if your audience, if you find yourself doing an audience and your audience is an industry or a group of people, think again. I want you to have a specific audience in mind here, because what you're going to do is do some research about them. You're going to find things out about them. You're going to look and see what you can come up with and see what you can use to help shape your message. So what you find out about them goes into this planning document. What you know about them based on their work goes into this planning document. Okay? You can use Google. There are certain websites. There's a great website called Glassdoor.com. It's kind of like Yelp for companies, where you can find out people who've been through interviews or people who have worked there. They kind of leave reviews. Now, keep in mind that when you're on the internet, most of the stuff that you find is probably going to skew what? It's going to skew negative. But it gives you an idea into what the culture of the company is like, what the hiring process is like, what they're looking for in employees. Some people will go through that and they'll find a company that they thought they wanted to work for. And once they kind of find out stuff from people who have been there, they're like, no way, I'm not going to do that. That sounds horrible. Okay? Find that stuff out. Just regular Google search. Keep in mind, some companies are really, really big. Disney is a popular audience. Disney is a massive conglomerate. They have multiple companies and branches underneath them. So Disney is not a great audience. Disney Animation Studios, if you are into animation, or Pixar, that's a better audience. Disney Parks is an audience. ESPN, Marvel Studios, like Lucasfilm, that's a better audience than just Disney. Disney's a very broad company. Now, if you want to work for Disney corporate, that's one thing. But if you're an aspiring animator just saying, I want to work for Disney, you need to drill down a little farther and into a little bit more specific audience there. Okay? Yeah, Glassdoor, the one I just talked about, Aaron. That's a great website. Glassdoor.com, and you can search by company name, you can search by region. So this can help you generate some ideas, because sometimes people are like, well, I'm not really sure who I want to work for yet. And that's okay. Even if you aren't decided yet, a company that's, I say shoot for your dream job here and go for it. And even if you haven't decided yet, pick one, because I want you to get the experience of doing this, going through this process and finding out about what you can find out about that audience. It's going to help you tailor your message to them. That's why having the audience defined is so important, and why having a specific audience is so important. Okay, any questions on audience before we move on? Because this is a big thing. Having this audience defined is going to help kind of set a lot of your presentation in motion. So I just want to make sure we're clear here on what we're looking for when we talk about audience. Okay, we'll come back to that if we need to, but remember, a specific audience. Hear me again, including those watching the recording. Don't send me a presentation plan telling me your audience is fellow musicians, or your audience is creative people, or your audience is someone that you want to purchase a product that you're going to make, because you're not going to ever have to pitch to those people. Now, you may have to pitch to someone who's going to help you make that thing happen so that people can buy it. That's what I'm looking for here. I want you pitching your skills, not your idea. Your idea comes into play in the presentation, but it is more about you and your ability to do the work that you say you want to do. Okay, what is your big idea? So what's the big idea, right? Big idea is, what do you bring to the table, right? When people hear you, we talked a little bit about brand. What do you want to pitch about yourself? Or have you have a specific career path in mind? Do you have a specific thing that you're going to bring to the table? What are you going to highlight about yourself for that, based on what you know about that audience? All right. So if you're a game artist, for example, and you're going to pitch, and I use this example because my kids play it a lot. The game Cuphead. Everybody familiar? Are you familiar with the game Cuphead? Or is anyone? It's a really, really fun game. Kelsey, if you had to describe the art in Cuphead, what would you use to describe it? How would you describe it? Is it really intense 3D? Yeah, it's 2D. It's more like an old Disney cartoon. So it's like classic animation. So if you know that your audience is the company that makes Cuphead, apologies to them for not remembering off the top of my head, and your big idea is you're a really, really talented 3D artist, is that going to resonate with them? Probably not, right? Because you're like, hey, our product is 2D. Our biggest seller is 2D art. So your big idea is not going to be your talent as a modeler or a 3D artist. Your big idea is going to be your skills as a 2D artist and how that is going to impact from them, okay? True. If you want to try to change their mind about it, and you're going to pitch them on why you're the person to bring them from 2D, that's an interesting strategy. But I would stick with the other approach. All right. So that's that big idea. That's what I mean by that. A sentence or two on what you are all about professionally. Okay. Now the flow of ideas. This is beginning, middle, and end. And what did I say I wanted you to think when you saw beginning, middle, and end? Why, how, what. So the beginning is the why. Okay. What is your why? What inspired you? I will give you an example of how why, how, what could be used in this situation, in this kind of pitch. Maybe you're an aspiring filmmaker, and your why is you saw Jaws when you were a little kid, and it scared the living daylights out of you, but you loved the movie. And you had to know who made this movie. Who is this person who made this film? It scared me so much. And you found out it was Steven Spielberg, and you became obsessed with Steven Spielberg movies and his skills as a filmmaker. And that inspired you to say, hey, I want to become a filmmaker. I want to do for people the same thing that Steven Spielberg did for me when I was young. Inspire me to be a filmmaker. That's the why. In a 3 to 4 minute presentation, that story is about a minute and a half. So what I want you to do here is just kind of give me the sketch of that story. This does not have to be a script, right? It doesn't have to be the finished product. But I want to be able to see what your ideas are so that I can give you feedback on if you are going in the right direction. Okay? So give me your best ideas here. Maybe you've got a couple for this why, and you want some feedback on what would be the best approach. Well, I'm happy to do that. And a lot of what I'm going to tell you that depends on is what? Who your audience is, and what do you think will resonate more with them. So that's the why. How you got to basically to Full Sail. What motivated you to want to enter this industry? Now, back to my filmmaker example. I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker like Steven Spielberg, and I knew I needed additional skills to make that happen. So I came to Full Sail. That's the transition. That transition shows cause and effect. It shows the cause, the why, and the effect is, hey, bringing me to Full Sail to learn. Don't tell us about your process of coming to Full Sail. Don't tell us about your application process. Some people confuse that sometimes, and they talk about looking up on the websites and sending in the application, and they talk about that. Don't talk about that. It's the fact that you came here. And then when you're at Full Sail, what did you learn? And you're like, well, I haven't taken any classes yet. I just have yours. How do I know this? Well, what you're going to do, you see where it says click here? We have a little video that is going to explain how to look up your course catalog. And your course catalog is housed on the main Full Sail website, fullsail.edu. But if you follow this video that's linked here, this is going to explain all this, but I'm just going to do it really quickly to show you an example. Say your degree is digital art and design. Let's do graphic design. This will take you to a kind of description, general overview. But if I want to find out what my course schedule is, I click that link. And here's all the classes that I'm going to take. Now, I don't want you to talk about classes. I want you to talk about skills. So how do I figure out what skills I'm going to have? Well, I click the title, and here's a write-up of the course. So this is where I can find out about skills. And this is the kind of thing that I'm going to talk about. Okay? So instead of saying, I know concepts in photography, if it's relevant to my audience, I'm not going to say I took a course called Concepts in Photography. I'm going to say I learned file management and metadata in a professional production workflow. That makes sure that I am able to work within your team environment and stuff's going to stay organized, and I'm not going to interrupt the flow. Okay, those are skills. And those are things that as an employer, you're going to be asking, and you're going to be wanting to hear. I'm not going to want to hear that you took concepts in photography. I don't know what that means. I'm not going to want to hear that you took creative presentation. I don't know what that means. And great, you got an A in it. Super. Congratulations. What does it mean? What can you do? Well, I could clearly communicate my ideas to customers and clients and teammates. That's a skill. Okay. So if it's relevant, you can talk about things like that. So read your course descriptions. Read them all. Don't give me a giant bullet list of everything, but choose several of the skills that are there and how those are going to be relevant so you can document that in your plan. Okay? And that's going to be your house section. That's going to be your middle. How are you qualified to do the things that I want to do? So back to my film example. I came to Full Sail. I learned about stage production. I learned lighting. I learned set direction. I learned screenwriting. While I was on campus, if you happen to ever be on campus working here, there is the WWE NXT program, wrestling program. Is filmed on campus. And I'm like, if you're in any kind of television, film, show production, anything related, you have the ability to volunteer and work on that. And people are like, well, man, I want to be a filmmaker. What does that have to do with me? You can walk out of here and say, look, I worked on a television production that's seen by millions of people worldwide. That's really cool. That is amazing experience for someone in that industry, So think about that as well. Not only the kind of things that you're going to know, but how are you going to be able to apply them as you learn them? And you may not be on campus, but there are opportunities for you where you are right now. Maybe you're already in a job, and maybe you're going to be able to say, hey, based on what I was learning, I was able to expand my skill set at my current position, or I was able to go out. Maybe you're a web developer. You're learning web development, and you were able to go out and help a neighbor's pizza restaurant. You build them a website, and they're able to do online ordering at its neighborhood pizza place now. And that's the kind of things to think about. How can you demonstrate and apply the skills that you're learning and show that you are gaining experience as well as knowledge? Okay? And how I tell people to think about that is, by the time you get out and you go to your interview, what do people want to hear? Well, what's your experience? So think about how you would like to be able to answer that question in an ideal world. If you're a game developer, hey, I created my own, as part of my student portfolio, I created a game that I worked on with fellow students that's now available on Steam. Right? That's a reasonable thing that you can achieve by the time you graduate school here, or it's now available in the App Store, Google Play. As an audio producer, I was able to produce 2 podcasts for students and help someone else get an EP recorded and posted to SoundCloud. Right? That's you applying the skills that you're learning. So you want to be able to think about those kinds of ideas. That's why I have you doing this flash forward to the future, because I want you thinking today, what can I be doing while I'm in school? I don't want you to get to the end, get to graduation and look back and go, man, I wish I'd done more. I want you thinking about that right now so that you can be looking for those opportunities when they come. Okay, so that's the middle. Now the what, the close, what do you want to do and how does this affect the audience, right? I forgot who it was, and I apologize. But one of you in your TED Talk assignment had a great summation of what the what is all about, what the close is all about. He said, I really liked the presentation that I saw, but it had no call to action. It had no close that let me know as an audience what's next. It left me asking what's next. The presentation itself was good, but when I got to the end, I was asking what's next. That is a really common thing. You don't want your audience to ever ask what's next. So for this, it's a little straightforward. Hey, if you're pitching to a company, your message is basically hire me. You don't want to be quite so direct, but hey, bring me on as part of your team. In my filmmaker example, hey, Blumhouse Pictures, I want to come in and work for you as an editor or a director. I want to direct movie. Bring me on as part of your team. I want to make movies that inspire a new generation of filmmakers the way that Steven Spielberg inspired me. That's your close. That doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be really, and as a matter of fact, it should not be long, because your closing should be direct, it should be succinct, and it should really kind of give your presentation a little bit of a punch. So if you think about these sections in terms of what your final presentation is going to look like, your beginning, you're shooting for about a minute, minute and a half. Your middle, you're shooting for about a minute and a half. Your close, your what, you're 30 to 45 seconds, right? It's just a kind of a summation, and it needs to involve that audience directly. Okay, it needs to make clear what's expected of them and what the benefit is for them, not just for you. The benefit for you is easy, right? Hire me. What's the benefit for them? You want to make sure that's all clear in the closing. And the last thing in there is star moments. What's your star moment going to be? Now, this is covered in your reading. We'll talk about it more next week. But it is something that you guys have already kind of covered in your reading. Who can tell me what a star moment is? It's an acronym. Something they'll always remember. That's exactly it. In the modern terms, drop the mic moment. That thing that people talk about the next day. Right? Now, this is a technique. It's not something that you have to like formally identify in your presentation. But in your plan, if you're thinking about this can be really useful. You could have more than one star moment. Nancy identifies that there's 5 types of star moments that she talks about. There's a demonstration. There's a repeatable soundbite. There's emotional pictures, emotional storytelling. And then, oh man, I blanked on the last one. Oh, shocking statistics. Sorry. Blanked out there for a second. A shocking statistic. You can use more than one of these in your presentation. You may not know this yet, but spend some time thinking about it. For most of you, your why, if you follow that why, how, what structure, which I do want you to do, your why is an emotional story. So that is emotional storytelling. So that's going to be your star moment, or at least can be one of your star moments. Maybe you're an artist. Maybe you have art that you have worked on. Maybe you have character art. You're going to use that in your presentation. That's a star moment. All right, so think about things like that. Maybe you are a musician. Maybe you're a performer. I'm going to break it to you. You cannot rap your entire presentation, nor can you sing it. So you can't give us a 4-minute freestyle. You're already good at that. I want you to work on a different skill set. Now, what you could do, though, is give us a demonstration of your skills. 20 seconds. Maybe it's a clip of a song that you've produced. Okay? That's fine. That's a memorable demonstration. Question, if you have too many star moments, does it distract? Yeah, if you have too many of anything, it lessens the impact. And now it's going to depend on how long your presentation is. There's some really good TED Talks that have multiple star moments in them, but they're 20 minutes long. You've got a presentation that's 4 minutes tops. So most of you are going to have 1, maybe you have 2, but don't think that you have to come up with 5 star moments for a 4-minute presentation. You can come up with 1, that's good. You're just wanting to leave that audience with something that when they hear your name, oh, that was the person who did that thing in their presentation, right? That just plants your idea in their mind so that you're always going to think of you that way. All right. So that's the plan. It's pretty straightforward. Before you get going, though, be sure to watch that Simon Sinek video. It's called How Great Leaders Inspire Action if you want to get a jump on it. TED Talk from 2009. I will warn you ahead of time. It's getting a little outdated in terms of some of the references because it is from almost 10 years ago now. It's from 2009. So some of the references that he uses, he talks about some companies that some of you may have never heard of, but it's okay because the big examples are all pretty relevant and straightforward.